Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be installing new brake lines on my Toyota 4Runner. So the brake lines on this Toyota 4Runner are original and they're pretty old, and 3 of the lines on the Toyota 4Runner are actually rubber still. There are 2 in the front and 1 in the rear, and if you guys know my 4Runner, it's actually lifted. So the rear brake line is actually an extended brake line to compensate for the lift that I have. Let me show you guys what we got and some of the tools that we're going to be using for this project. So you can see here we've got 3 brake lines, 2 for the front and 1 extended one for the rear. I got these brake lines from Wheelers Off-Road. I'll leave a link for you guys down in the description. The 2 front ones aren't anything special. They are the same length as the original, so they should bolt right on. The rear one is actually an extended one that's good for up to 3.5 inches of lift, and I've got about a 3.5 inch lift in the back or something like that. So this should be perfect for it. Obviously you're going to need brake fluid because we're going to be taking apart the brake system, and so you're going to need something to bleed the brakes, and I've got a one-man bleeder here and your favorite .3 or .4 brake fluid. I've also got some vacuum caps here that I'm going to be using to kind of minimize the amount of brake fluid that's going to spill. It looks like this 5/16 inch vacuum cap is going to work perfectly to kind of seal off that brake line while I'm changing it out for the new one. And then of course you're going to need a 10mm flare wrench to take apart the brake line, and then some kind of flathead to kind of pry the retainer clip that's on there. And obviously you're going to need some tools to lift your vehicle and take apart the tire. So I've got some tools here for that, and also my jack. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get the vehicle off the ground. All right, let's unbolt the tires. Alright guys, so the brake hose that we're after is right here, and you can see it's held on by a clip, and there's a hard line right here, and then there's a hard line on this side that goes to the actual caliper. So we're going to be taking off all these retaining clips. We're going to loosen this one first and cap it off so that way it doesn't leak everywhere, and then we're going to work on this side. Now make sure you do break this line first, because if you don't and you take it out of the clip, then you won't be able to. Now you want to make sure you do use a flare wrench, because you don't want to end up stripping this brake line. Oh boy. So it wasn't coming off easily, and I sprayed some PB Blaster on there. I'm going to wait a little bit, but make sure you guys use a flare wrench just in case you've got a semi-stuck one or a rusty vehicle and it doesn't want to come free. So I'm going to try to loosen this one down here and see if I get any more luck. Okay, so that one came off pretty easily. That one is the one that's stuck now. Now I don't want to take this one out yet because the brake fluid's going to go everywhere. Gotta focus on this one right here. I'm going to have to get the vice grips. It's supposed to be easy, not hard. Why do you hate me? Alright guys, got some pliers and some vice grips, and hopefully we'll be able to get this guy off now. It's pretty on there. It's pretty much stripped at this point, but it is what it is. Okay, yeah. Oh yes. Alright, I think I got it loose, so that's good. Alright, we're just going to take this line off and plug it up. Alright, so the line's free. Just pick it up, stick this plug on there. Alright, that way you don't lose too much fluid. Next up, we're going to loosen this side. I already did that, as you saw earlier. This one came off a little bit easier than the other one. Once it's off, you can just switch to a regular 10 if you don't want to mess with that flare wrench. A little bit of fluid will come out of here because there's still some in the brake line here. So just get ready for that. All right, got that guy out. All right, next thing we're gonna do is take off these tabs, and that's where this flathead comes in handy. So just stick it under here and kind of pry up against it like that. And you should be able to pop it free. All right, there's that. You can see the line just fell down. Still need this. And do the same thing with the other one. Can kind of hit it out. Alright, there we go. Alright, so here's the old line, and this is the new one that's going to replace it. You can see, looks like they're the exact same length. Let's clean this surface a little bit, because it is pretty disgusting. Here are the two clips. This one went over there. This is a super rusty one. But it seems like it's just surface rust. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna connect this side first, since this side has brake fluid coming out of it. All right, so when you put this in, it helps to start this first before you put that clip in. Otherwise, it's gonna be really hard to line it up straight, and you wanna do this by hand. You don't wanna strip this guy. All right, so now that I started it, it's kind of hard to get this back in. So I'm gonna take this bolt off back here. It's just held on by a 12 millimeter. That way I can move the bracket. And then I can line it up and put it on. So let's twist it a little bit here. Okay, there we go. All right, now that it's in there, we can put the clip on, just to hold it in place. And you can get anything. All right, and then I'm gonna put the bracket back on so we can finish tightening it up. And it's just a bolt back here. Now that bolt has a tendency to strip, so just be careful with that bolt. All right, let's finish tightening this guy up, and then we're gonna put the other side in. All right, that's pretty tight. Don't wanna tighten it too much. All right, this next one is the same thing. So for this one, before we put the retainer on, we're gonna wanna hand start it first. And it looks like it's already started there. And then kind of wiggle it back into place like that. And then stick this guy back in there. Okay. Get yourself some hammer or a plier. Oh boy. Get it in there. All right, let's tighten up this line so it stops leaking. And mine's pretty stripped, so I have to use the plier here. All right, right about there. And it looks like it stopped leaking, so that's good. All right, that completes this one side, and basically you do the same thing for the other side. All right, guys, wanted to show you guys the passenger side. Like I mentioned, exactly the same. This side was much easier than the other side. Everything came off pretty easily. All right, onto the back. All right, you guys, we are under the vehicle and starting the back now. It's probably a good idea to take the spare tire out. I'm sitting right under the vehicle, and you can see this is the brake line we're after right here. It's right on top of the differential, and you can see up top there's a similar retaining clip that we got to get rid of, and then we're going to take off the brake line right here. And then this one, I forgot to mention earlier, it needs a 17 millimeter open end, or if you have one of these, you can use this as well. So we're gonna go ahead and start working on that. All right, it's pretty cramped down here, but hopefully you guys are able to see that. I've already sprayed this with PB Blaster earlier, so let's hope it comes loose. Yes, all right, awesome. So we're gonna switch over to the regular 10 and take this guy off. There isn't a whole lot of room under here, so this might take a while. Well, that's not cooperating. Let's pry off the bracket and see. There's literally no room under here. A little bit of movement now. That'll help with taking this off. much easier. So it helps to use a small tin if you got one. But I'm gonna see if I can use the pliers. Alright, so just keep doing this until it comes off, guys, and I won't bore you with that. Alright guys, we got it out. Don't forget your plug to save some brake fluid here. Alright, I'm gonna work on the bottom now. Alright, so this here is the bottom. So we just need a 17 millimeter, and I've got one here. And this one might be a little tight, but you should be able to get it. Lefty loosey. There we go. Alright, that wasn't too bad. And you just gotta twist this guy off. So you guys probably can't see this, but I'm gonna show you guys the difference in the length. And so you can see I've got it already attached, and you can see it is about, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches longer. It's probably like 5 inches longer. So if you guys don't know, when you put a lift on and these springs right here, when your vehicle starts flexing, this brake line gets super stretched, and that's why you want to upgrade to a longer line. So you can either use this one, which is a 19-inch line, or you can use a Tundra line, which is 20 inches. So either one's going to work just fine. All right, let's go ahead and put this brake line on now. So this one is a 14 millimeter instead of a 17. So make sure you guys have a 14 handy. I know I forgot to mention that earlier. And you just want to twist this guy on there. And, you know, hit everything along the way. Okay, so it's tight already. We're going to take our 14 millimeter and give it a good tighten. Alright, that should be good. Alright guys, let's go ahead and do the top now. Now one thing to notice is on this one you need to make sure you put the C-clip that's provided on here. The old one has one as well. If you don't, it's gonna go right through that hole. So make sure you put this C-clip on the bottom here. There's 2 slots. And if you can't push that on, just get some pliers and you should be able to squeeze that on there. Alright, there we go, that's it. And then we're going to stick it through the hole now. And we're going to go ahead and start the brake line first. So let's go ahead and take all this off. Let the brake line go in there. Try to start it by hand. And then go ahead and put that retaining clip back on. This one here. And this one goes on by hand. Alright, let's go ahead and tighten it all the way. I went ahead and got me a little stubby here to help me with this, because earlier it was a nightmare. Alright, we'll use the flare wrench for the final tightening. And there isn't a whole lot of room over here. Alright, that should be good. Alright guys, we got her all tightened down, and now we're going to go ahead and bleed the brakes and test her out. Alright guys, we're up here at the master cylinder. We're going to fill it up with fresh brake fluid, and this one calls for .3, so make sure you use the right one. And we're going to fill it to the top. And if you guys have never bled your brakes, what you want to do is start from the farthest line from the master cylinder, which in this case it's the tire on the passenger rear over there, and then you're going to move over to this tire on the driver's side in the rear, and then you're going to go to that side and then this side. And I'm not going to show you guys that. I'm going to show you guys the last tire here, and all you need to do is just crack the bleeder open, and if you have a one-man bleeder system, you can just pump the brakes maybe 10 times and then just tighten the bleeder valve, and that should be it. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, like I mentioned, I'm only going to show you guys the driver's side, but I already did the other 3, and I'm going to show you guys the last one here. This one's got a nice little magnet on it, which is kind of convenient because you do want it higher than the caliper. That way the fluid always goes down. And then mine has a little cap on there already, and if it's really tight you can take a 10 millimeter to crack it, but I'm going to use this box end wrench. And you can put the hose on here, And it helps to kind of twist it in the opposite direction in case the bleeder screw is really loose, because it'll keep wanting to tighten if you don't. So we're just going to crack this open like that. And you can see the fluid's already coming out. Well, hopefully you can. This hose is kind of hard to see, but I see fluid coming out already. So I'm going to go ahead and head into the vehicle and pump the brakes 10 times. Now, one thing you need to make sure is when you put this thing together, make sure you have a little bit of brake fluid in here, so that way you don't get air back in the line. If you submerge it in brake fluid, maybe up to here, then you shouldn't have a problem with this system. All right, I'm in the vehicle, just pumping the brakes 10 times slowly. All right, that's number 10. And then we're just gonna tighten this back up. And you shouldn't see any more air in the line. It should all be fluid. So that means that there's no air in the system. All right. Take this out, make sure you squeeze it so it doesn't go everywhere. Just let it drain to the bottom. All right, let's put the cap back on. And that should be it. Now, as you're bleeding the brake, make sure that this reservoir never goes empty. So after every wheel, it's a good idea to refill it back up to the top. And right now I'm going to fill it back up because it's right under the minimum line. All right, it's back to the full mark, and we're going to head into the vehicle and just check the brake pedal real quick. And it should be pretty stiff. Yeah, oh, it's super hard. All right, I'm going to go for a test drive and I'll let you guys know how it goes.
A few moments later.
All right, you guys, that about wraps up this video. Make sure you check for leaks on the new brake lines and make sure it's not leaking anywhere. Mine wasn't leaking, so it was good to go. I went for a test drive earlier and I noticed that the brakes are very responsive now compared to before. And it's not because of the new fluid that I just put in, because that fluid that was in there was only maybe less than 6 months old. And so I know that it's because of the brake lines that I put in. So I'm pretty happy about that, because these big old tires do require a lot more braking power, and I feel like I got a little bit more from these new brake lines. And also that old rubber line is really old, and eventually it's gonna break or crack on the trail, which I don't want. I do have a couple more mods coming later related to that rear brake line, so make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. If you guys have any questions, make sure you ask them in the comments down below. I'll leave a link in the description for you guys if you guys are interested in the brake lines or any of the products that I use. So if you guys like this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Like I mentioned, I got more mods coming. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for those. And as always, guys, have a nice day.